Welcome back to another episode of How Did They Grow? I created this podcast because I wanted you to learn how other coaches, freelancers, service providers, and course sellers are growing their business, landing 10 to 20 new clients every single month, paying them 50, 100, 200K months. See, if they've done it, you can too. And that's just the reality. And I want you to listen to these podcasts to understand what strategies are they using, what techniques are they exploring, because it's in these gems that you can apply it to your business and actually scale things up. When you're ready and you feel like you actually want to learn practical, proven methodologies, or even you want to hire a team that can build you a profitable personal brand, book in a chat with our team because we can guarantee you go viral and guarantee you get clients for your business.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm so excited to introduce you today, Kira Sherman, mindset and limitless living coach and retreat host at Alive Women Retreats. Welcome, Kira. I'm so happy to have you here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Well, listen, the stage is yours. Tell us all about how this started. When did this start? What inspired you to get into mindset and limitless living coaching? Can you tell us more about that? What does that mean to you?
Yeah. So it started quite early for me. I was working in corporate. I was in banking and I was successful. I had been headhunted twice in the industry and, I had made a certain amount of money, where I kind of started to think to myself, wow, like here I am, with a certain taste of success. And I kind of thought it would taste a little sweeter, maybe. I kind of thought it occurred to me, I am now an adult and this is life. And my experience of that was not what I really hoped it would be. I kind of felt a bit of almost like an emptiness or like, is that it? Is this it?
Right.
Is it, it's gotta be a little bit more something, right? And it wasn't for me. And it was very bittersweet in a way, I think. So I realized that I didn't think I was really happy either. Even though I was successful, I started to evaluate my job and I'm like, I don't really know if I want to do what I'm doing anymore, but I didn't have enough courage to work for myself, or I didn't really believe, like it was like I was really locked and frozen into this job because it was like, well, what else would I do? And I had a list of reasons of why I couldn't do anything else and all of that. Anyway, so I got to a point where it became quite painful to stay where I was at. And I began looking and searching for answers. It was actually a really beautiful time for me because I was open, like I had come from this, like, I'm going to make money and I don't believe in anything you can't see. And I had done away with my religion. And so I didn't really have any spiritual connection to anything either, and I was really open, and I was so open that like, I kind of went a little bit all the way on the other side where I became a little bit hippie and I chanted with the Hare Krishnas and I took all these Indian philosophy courses and I thought, man, am I going to find my guru somewhere in the universe? Like I really, kind of went more on the spiritual side of things than the personal development side of things, although I had both. And I just would sit in Barnes and Noble and read books and be like, are you my mother? Like, do you have the answer that I'm looking for? And in about a 2-year period, I found two really big, what I call like pieces of the puzzle where I didn't have any more questions. I was like, I know what my answers are. And it has very much to do with now what I teach, which is, how you come to know your aliveness and knowing your place and role in this world. And so after that, I had a mentor that I found that really resonated with me, that again, like brought me to having no more questions. It was like, I don't have any questions about what this whole reality is and what I'm doing in it. It's just about doing it now. And so for a couple years, I worked for my mentor. And then I finally felt at some point that I really wanted to, that I had something personal to offer in this space, that there were other people like me looking for what I was looking for, and that I could facilitate or bring them onto this journey. And so that was about 2012. And I've been working with business owners, creatives, other coaches out in the world to really help them deepen in their own experience or their own version of that, right? Because everybody's got their own journey. It doesn't look like mine. It might look like mine, but it might look completely different, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Wow. So what, 2012, math, like 13 years coming up?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That is, I mean, that feels like a long time. Does it feel like a long time to you?
Yeah, it does. But it doesn't. It feels like just a moment ago when I started. And also, it's not the only thing I've done. I started a restaurant along the way. Like I had an
Love
inspiration
that.
to do other things. If, you know, I teach people really about mindset, but I also teach them about following their feeling, their intuition. And so if the feeling strikes, you know, to go in a different direction, it's not that I haven't done also other things in accompaniment with, you know, supporting people on this journey. And I've traveled a lot, you know, so I was able to work from other countries and do speaking events in different parts of the world. And so, you know, it doesn't feel like a long time in some ways. It feels like I'm just beginning in a weird way.
I love that. That's always so nice. Yeah, I like that point you said, you know, just exploring things that strike your attention, something that you like suddenly. I think I really believe that whatever it is, even if it might seem strange, I feel incapable of not exploring it, because then I just like go deep into myself. I'm like, you just have to, and somehow I convince myself to just do it, and then I do it, and whether it works out or not is a different story. But
well, what I love about what you just said is that most people are the opposite, where they're constantly talking themselves out of that thing. And so like, I think that's amazing for you that you actually spend time invested in talking yourself into it. And if I could add to it, you know, I think that sometimes when we talk about mindset specifically, it's, you know, really removing the labels of like what working out means. Like,
right.
Is it like what working out? You had an experience. Sometimes failure is the most valuable experience that you have because you no longer fear it. You know, for example, you can take the power out of that and go, oh, I'm just doing something. It doesn't matter if it ends up being $1 million idea or if it ends up being a $25 idea, or I just got to meet someone really freaking cool in my reality and made a great connection. And that was all that it was meant to be, you know? And so the more you I think people give themselves that freedom to just experience without what's the outcome, you know, there's a lot of freedom and aliveness in that.
Right.
So
yeah, that's so great. How did you start the coaching? There's so many of our listeners who really want to become a coach or really have this calling inside them and know that this might be their place. They want to become a public speaker. They don't necessarily know how to start, but how did you acquire that first client or those first 10?
Yeah, for sure. For those of you out there, I want to preface what I'm about to say with like the importance of not rushing the process. In other words, like there's a really big difference between like I knew that let me put it like this. I knew that I wanted to be a coach for about 3 years before I stepped into it. So, and I say that with great hesitation because on the other hand, the moment I knew that it was time to start, I did not hesitate to strike while the iron was hot. So I'm giving you two different forms of this, you know, it's like, because sometimes they'll mix those two up. It's like, oh, I really desire and love to be a coach, but I need to make it happen right now. You know, and it's like, maybe it's time for that. Maybe you're still cultivating your experience, you know, like if you don't feel that experience, you don't want to rush that process and go, well, I'm just going to start charging, you know, $1,000 an hour you know, it's like you might not be there yet. You know, you might be in the place where, like when I started, I'll tell you my story so this becomes more tangible, but I just want to give that advice on the front end. When I started, I knew that I wanted to be a coach for a few years, and I was working for somebody else and I was facilitating my mentors' clients. So I was coaching, but it wasn't mine yet. And it was still also in a sales capacity where I was really supporting these clients within the programs that we were running, you know, for the clients. And we were doing retreats back then. We had an online event, we had a live event, you know, stuff like that. Things that had changed my own life from his work. And so I was coaching, but I also wasn't really being a full coach, you know? And so I let myself have that process for a while. And then I hit this moment where I remember I was in Alaska. We have a family property there, and I was about to move back to New York from the summer to the winter to New York City, and a feeling washed over me, and it was like the message was, it's time. Like, and I immediately said yes to that feeling, and I was like, okay, it's time to do my own coaching and step into it fully. And that requires a bit of honesty within oneself about, you know, a little bit of self-reflection can go a long way of like, because there's those moments where it's like, I'm ready and I'm afraid. And you don't want that to hold you back either. It's like, no, be afraid. Do it anyway. You know, step into it anyway. And so I'm giving you kind of all these different versions of things that I experience and that I see other people experience in my 13 years of facilitating other people's mindsets as well. And so those are different dynamics that you come across. But once the iron strikes, you know, I just followed my intuition. And it sounds cheesy because I know that's what I teach, but it's also what I live. And so my feeling was like, I remember a friend invited me to a networking event, and I lived in Brooklyn at the time, and we were going to have to travel all the way to the Upper East Side. And she was like, she canceled on me. And I had to really check in with myself because it was like, I'm going to go by myself to this networking event all the way across the city, you know, and it was like, but what do I feel? And my feeling was like, be there, go. And I was almost like a little bit disappointed because I got to the networking event and I didn't resonate with anyone and nobody resonated really with me. But then somewhere in the night, it turned into like, in terms of a business thing, you know, but some point during the night, it just turned into a little bit of like a dance party. Like it was a networking event, but it was also like I don't know how to explain it. It was like they turned on the music and people got, you know, they loosened up a little bit. There was a little bit of wine. And so we were just dancing in this event space, you know, and I didn't care anymore about the business side. And I was just being myself. And at the very end of the night, this woman came up to me and she said, "Hey, I really dig your energy."
That's the best compliment ever.
Right? Like I'm vibing on you, basically, you know, I'm having a little girl crush. Like, what do you do? Who are you? You know, kind of thing. And I told her, and she goes, interesting. She says, I run a multi-speaker event for women. And I was awesome. Like, I'm in. And, you know, I had to pay to speak at that event, by the way. Like that was her business model, is that she got people to pay for the event and she had the speakers actually pay to promote themselves, you know? And normally I would never have done something like that, and I haven't done it since. But my feeling was so strong that it was like, it doesn't matter, just do it. I have clients from that event who still work with me.
Wow, that's amazing.
And the amount of referrals that came from that experience, like it was invaluable. You know, I mean, the amount of I can't even count, like the amount that I spent compared to the results of what happened as a result. Like, not only are these people that have paid me a lot of money, but people who I consider family, like people who've been on the journey with me for a long time. So, it's easy to get caught up in like the results, and it's bigger than that sometimes. When you're coming from that heart space, it's bigger than just the money. It's, but this is my experience, so I don't want to project on anyone. You can have whatever experience you want, but for me, there's the heart experience is also just as powerful, and watching people transform themselves is just as powerful as the results of the money. But from a money perspective, like, trust me, it came back a millionfold. Like, so, but I wouldn't say for somebody else to do that unless they really felt in their heart and soul that that was the move for them. And I have been a speaker, and that's worked for me. I have a friend of mine who does exactly what I do. He's a dude and a man. And he gets all his business off Instagram. I have never gotten a single client off Instagram, and
That's
I feel
interesting.
inspired. Sorry?
I said that's really interesting.
So his inspiration is Instagram. I have zero inspiration for Instagram. I try to do it occasionally, and it's just like, I fucking hate this. Sorry, I didn't mean to curse on your podcast.
That's okay.
I don't want to do this. I'm not inspired. Am I inspired to get on stage and speak? That I'm inspired to do. Am I inspired to write? I'm inspired to write. Am I inspired to facilitate retreats? Yes. But I go on TikTok and I'm like, I don't like this. It's not for me. And so my biggest advice when you are growing is, and people ask me this all the time, a lot of coaches will come to me for coaching in this, because I've built a business, and I had some business experience even before that, and so they're like, well, how do you do it? And it's just like, you got to be true to yourself. You don't look at what everybody else is doing. You don't have to do a sales funnel. You don't have to fill in the blank. Whatever it is you think or have been told that you need to do, that's not it. I've done no marketing. I've done speaking events, which is a form of marketing, but it's also what I love to do. And most of it's been like just in the flow.
Right, like organic in person.
It's not just organic in person. What I'm trying to say is anything that I've felt to do has worked, and anything that I did because I thought I needed to do it has never gotten me any results.
Of course, yeah.
So, and especially in the beginning, I went into a lot of fear. And I was like, I need to do this energy. Like, I need to do all these.
Yeah.
And none of it helped me. And I could have just relaxed and done this thing. And then that thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean what you just said, like you having that frustrated energy toward, and not even wanting or liking, for example, the social media side of things, which is totally normal and totally fair, because it's not for everyone. Like, there's a reason why there are influencers who can manage their accounts by themselves, and there are people who just can't and have teams behind them. Like, there's a reason for that, because they don't have the time, they might not have the expertise, or they just don't want to, and it's completely fine. Your friend who is inspired by Instagram might be the complete opposite of you. He might, like you said, he might get that exciting feeling from creating the content and doing all these things himself. He might get like that creative, joyful energy from that, where you get that from connecting with people in person, being on stage and having these opportunities to connect with people, which I think is so beautiful. It's amazing. But yeah, it's like exactly what you said, being in tune with yourself and listening to yourself and knowing how to recognize, is this really what I want to do, or am I forcing myself because someone told me I had to? Yeah. But what's great nowadays is that there are solutions to both things. You don't have to choose.
It's why you guys exist, right? Like, you've built a business for the ideal. Like, in some ways, I'm your ideal client. I mean, I've never invested in marketing, but I might, for the first time, kind of be ready to go down that route. And in some ways, somebody, or whether it's me or somebody like me who's like, I don't want to do this. I need someone to come and tell me to share the message that is authentic for me, and then they're going to package it and they're going to, create the container for that to go out and reach other people. Because, and that's the thing, like, you want to be honest with yourself when you're starting your business. Like, do you feel to do that? Do you not feel to do that? Because people can also spend time and money on things that doesn't work for them because they didn't really feel to do it. And it's almost like I see people come from this space of like, but I just need this to work.
Yeah.
Rather than going through the process of like, okay, like it may not be time yet, or that may not be the move. It may be come from a different place. That's why I call myself a limitless living coach, is like people limit themselves constantly and go, well, it's got to work this way. And it's like,
nothing else.
You don't know where your clients are going to come from. They might, I'll give you a reference point. I cannot tell you how many times the mind in me has gone, you need to sit here and work. And my heart has been like, go to the cafe, and I meet a client at the cafe.
Oh, that's so great.
It's stuff like that happens to me all the time. That it's like the logical mind goes, and maybe for some of you who like Harry Potter, this is a good reference point, but it's like when Harry takes the luck potion, and they've got this plan, right? All three of them are like, we're going to do this and we're going to do this. And as soon as Harry takes the luck potion, he's like, guys, I've got a feeling to go here. And they're like, wait a second, Harry, we're all supposed to go do, we had a plan. We did the marketing. We know exactly what the next step. And he's like, nope, I've got a feeling. And then he goes exactly where he needs to be and says the exact thing that gets the professor to do the thing that they really needed to be done. And had they followed their own plan, it wouldn't have happened. And living intuitively and living, from the space that I teach people, it's all about that kind of flow. It's all about the magic that happens when you let go of the plans and really step into, and this is, but some people could listen to this and go, well, that's airy fairy, or that's woo woo. But I'm running a business this way. Like, I'm not like teaching this and going like, oh, anyone can do it. Like, I'm fucking doing it. Like, I have, and I'm talking about like serious clients. Like, I'm not like, I mean, I don't want to talk about the money side of things, but like, I get paid very well for what I do. I get paid to speak on stages. Like, I have clients who are running companies. Like, it's not, big organization, $20 million companies. Like, I'm not saying like, oh, I can work with somebody and they're going to pay me $25 an hour. Like, we're talking a serious business. So I just want to bring that root into it, that like, I'm not like, oh, just go do what you feel and everything's going to work out. Like, I do it that way, but I also get the results too. So
for sure.
You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. I love the way you've done things. I love that you followed your heart, and you're this thing that sparked the fire inside of you, and just following that and like leading with your heart. I love that, becoming alive, all of that. That's really, really great. That's amazing.
I hope you're enjoying this podcast. I hope you're taking notes. I hope you're learning so much practical wisdom, because that's what I really wanted from this podcast. Now, I just want to quickly say, if you're looking for a team that can actually help you explode and go viral with your personal brand with proven methodologies, I say this because I've been doing this for the past 5 years. We've got a team of 30 people who are ready to go ahead and explode your brand so you can get clients begging to work with you. Have a chat with one of our advisors. You can book in a chat using one of the links around this video, because that chat might just change your life.
So have you been doing this all by yourself so far? Do you have a team behind you?
So for the most part, I've been doing this by myself. Like I said, I've collaborated with my mentor over the years. Like, it wasn't just in the beginning. Like, we've gone back and forth where I've brought clients of mine to his retreats, or, I actually have a client of his that came to one of my retreats this past week, and so there's been a lot of collaboration with that, where I've been a part of his team, or like we've collaborated with our clients and stuff. But recently my co-facilitator, Christina Tyndale, she was with me at the retreat, and she and I really feel aligned with us doing this together. And we're looking at building, slowly building a team behind us. But again, like not forcing it. And we're really feeling into, because we've got this new challenge that we're releasing, which is something I've never done before. And it's really a community, but like, I'm very careful not to like rush into it and to really feel it out and let it be organic until it's like, I'll know when it's time to start expanding the team. Like over the retreat, I was like, oh, it's time to hire a VA. And so I just know it's like, okay, it's time to take this next little step. And so that's very much how I run things in my business. Like I sense it, I say yes to it, and it's like, okay, that's the next step. I would imagine at some point we're going to bring some marketing people on, and I've been meeting with different companies to just feel people out and I'm like, okay, is this my person? And I think I might even have this guy that I think might be my person, but I'm not ready for him yet, because we're still making sure that everything's like, that we're very clear on the direction we're going before I bring someone in. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it does. No, it's really interesting to see. A lot of our guests who come on here typically have done things, all by themselves, and they kind of reach a point where they're like, I am ready for boy, and I am ready to take, not necessarily, well, as a side effect, my business to another level, but mostly I want to take my brand, my personal brand, to the next level, which by doing so and getting the eyes on them and getting, instead of a footfall, kind of eyefall, I guess, through social media, that does increase their business as a side effect. It's a really great side effect that our clients typically get. So no, it's really, tell me.
I don't want to misspeak entirely. I have hired people in the past to help me with stuff. So it's not like I've entirely done it by myself. Like I had a copywriter come in 2 years ago, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to really get a different message out there on LinkedIn, because I like what her messaging for herself. And I was like, she's really good at this. I was like, do you want to do this for me? And she's like, yes, I would love to do this for you. But I think when I look back on it, I'm like, was it 100% aligned? I don't know. I think I just wanted to give it a go and try something, but I don't know if it was really true for me. So anyway, just an aside.
That's fine. Well, thank you for sharing that. I really love your approach and the way you speak of things, and it just oozes out of you like through a screen. I can just already feel your energy, really, and the kind of change and the kind of effect and transformation that you bring to people. So I can't even imagine what like a coaching session is like, or even seeing you in person at a speaking event. That must be really, really so great. But I can't help but think how much more it could do for you if you brought all of that online. I know you said you're not like inspired and things like that, but do you kind of see yourself building a brand like that online? Because there's constantly more people online, constantly more users, and it's almost like it would be a shame to not have you on there, and have you on as I hate the word influencer, not an influencer, but like a figure. I hate that word with a passion.
I know what you mean. It's like the moment you say influencer, like we both cringe a little bit.
Yeah.
On the inside,
It just makes me want to vomit. But a public figure is so much better.
Yes.
Because
yes.
you already are doing all of that. You already have so much impact into so many people's lives, and not just anybody, like executives. Like we're talking about like high level people, you know what I mean? There are so many people that could benefit from what you're doing. And
do you want me to be really honest with you?
Yeah.
Okay, I would love to be really honest with you, and maybe this honesty will support the community as well. Like I've been stepping into a newer version of myself on this journey. And it's like there's a lot of responsibility in being a public figure.
Right.
And so by responsibility, like, right, you've got like accountability, and accountability and discipline are kind of in that same like vein. You know, some people come to me and they're like, do you want to, you know, do I need accountability? And it's like, well, if you're not disciplined, you're going to need some accountability. But life will give you that accountability. If you don't pay your taxes, the IRS is going to garnish your wages, you know, like trust me, life will come and support you to be accountable if you cannot be accountable to yourself. But then there's a deeper version of that, which I really like to teach, which is really more an open version, a more expanded version, if you will, which is being responsible. There's a different vibration to that. There's a different energy of that. Is like, I want to be responsible to myself, and I want to be very responsible to my universe as well, my world, my reality. And it takes a great amount of maturity, both on the journey and in a person, to really understand what that means at a deeper level. And so I hope I'm not losing anybody in the audience on this one, but being responsible means if I'm going to step into the role of a public figure, I need to be a certain amount of willing to be very responsible to what that means for myself and for a greater community. And I think that up until very recently, I lacked the maturity and the capacity to be as responsible as I feel that I need and want to be in order to step into the role of public figure. But had you asked me this a couple weeks ago, I would have said I wasn't ready. And you're asking me today, and I do feel that I am now. So
thank you for being honest, and thank you for opening up. I think that's great. That takes a lot of self-reflection and responsibility, like you said, you know, to be able to know that this is for me, this isn't for me. I mean, I'd love to explore just your thoughts on what does this now mean for you. This is most likely very fresh for you. You said, you know, maybe 2 weeks ago this would have been a completely different answer, and today it is. But what does that look like for you in 2025? Do you have any goals to make that happen? Any plans?
So I feel like it's what one thing, for example, is I've been sitting on the idea of doing a podcast for a long time. And again, the way that I operate is I get little pieces of the puzzle, you know, of like we've been doing the format of the podcast. Christina and I have been talking about like, well, what does it look like? Do we have segments? You know, and we keep playing around with it. And it's like, we could have started already, but we would have missed out on maybe the process of really, figuring out, like letting things land on like how it's going to look. So long answer is like a podcast. And she just actually left South Carolina today because she was here with me facilitating this retreat that we had in South Carolina. And, you know, we were talking, right? And we were talking over dinner, and it was like, and I just said the word unapologetic. And I was like, there's something about unapologetic that's like just came into my sphere. She's like, we should have a talk. Like, we should do a talk out there in the world. Like, not a TED Talk, but a TED Talk, right? Like, what's our TED Talk? You know, what's our message? And it just dropped in for me. I was like, unapologetic is really resonating with me. And I don't even know what that means, you know, in this moment. But we have this aliveness brand as well. And so yes, I have a lot of things that I'm going to probably do this year. One of them is going to be a podcast. One of them is to release this community and start. But you know, one thing I've already started to do is just connect with people online, even if it's just one person. Like, I was part of this spiritual community, and this woman was like, I could use help. And she was so sincere. Yeah. And I just said, you know what, I'm happy to give you an hour of my time just for nothing, you know, because I could feel her sincerity. And we got on the call, and she was like, well, who are you and what are you pitching me, kind of thing. And I was like, look, let me I'm going to be very clear with you. I'm not pitching you anything. Like,
Right.
I just felt to connect with you and offer you my time because of your sincerity. And she was like blown away. And she's like, wow. And I said, I don't, anyway, long story short, after meeting with me, she became a client, and she's like, look, I think we'd make a really good team. Like, but I didn't do it for that reason. I
Right.
was just connecting with her authentically as a human being. Like, there's somebody out on the journey who needs help. I feel to put my hand up and to support this person. And, and I don't want to go into too detail about it, but like, this is for some of you who are just starting out, like, she asked me, she's like, well, how much do you charge? And I could tell that she wasn't going to be able to afford my coaching. So
Mm.
I said to her, I go, look, I could tell you how much I charge. I don't think that's going to
Right.
help you. Like, why don't you tell me what you can afford, and I'm just going to meet you there.
Okay, that's a
And,
nice approach.
I don't normally do that. Like, trust me, like, I never do that. Like, but the women that I've worked with, or the men that I've worked with, mainly, they own their own businesses. So it's never been really an issue, but I just felt this like grassroots feeling of like, that doesn't matter. And what I do is not about the money anyway, but I just was like, yep, that's fine. And it's like, 5 times less than I would normally charge, but I just didn't care. It just felt like the right thing to do in that moment. And so, to answer your question, to make it tangible, to tie this in a little bow,
Right.
I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to release this community about coming alive, which is Come Alive in 25 practices that you can do over the course of 25 days. And I am going to start connecting with more people that, to be of greater service, whatever that looks like in any given moment.
I love that. I love those plans. I love the community. I love the name and all of that. That sounds really, really exciting. I think there are lots of people who could really use that. You mentioned a small example of what that challenge inside the community involved in our earlier chat. Can you tell our audience a little bit about what's inside this challenge? Because I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, so we're kind of, and it's not necessarily just a challenge. Like, I hesitate to use labels. It's like, some people are going to be like, ooh, I love a challenge. And then other people are going to be like, I
Right.
want to do another challenge. Look, there's 25 practices that are suggested that I have personally done over the last 15 years of embracing my freedom and learning to live on the edge of the aliveness that is available. In other words, practices that help you get more deeply present, more deeply in this moment, help you disconnect from the stories in your mind and from, the noise that might be going on up in here, the relentless kind of radio that can sometimes play. And some of these practices are just disruptors. Like, for example, instead of going to your normal cafe today, go to one you've never been to before.
Yeah.
Travel out of your way to experience, because the disruption it's a freshness. It's like, ooh, this is new. And when you're in that energy of newness, you're a little bit out of that routine, you're going to come alive a little bit. It's why people travel sometimes, because they're like, I've never been here before. I've never seen this before. But you can almost bring that energy into your everyday life by, for example, one of the practices is like, see if you can notice something in your neighborhood on a drive that you do take every day. See if you can find something you've never seen before. Maybe it's on your neighbor's house. Maybe it's, it's like, sometimes when I've done this practice, I'm like, oh, there's a fire hydrant there. Like, weird. I've never seen that. And it's like right there, And so I think it's all these practices that support you not only in disrupting your reality and the way that you're experiencing it, so that you can feel that newness and that freshness, which is always where you can garner that sense of possibility again, especially if you're a creative or a business owner or an entrepreneur. Like, there's nothing worse than like being in this stuck, like, there are no possibilities energy. You gotta disrupt that by feeling the aliveness. And the other one, like another example would be mindfulness. So mindfulness in the form of just hey, why don't you take 3 breaths in? Could be between every call that you're doing. Could be just 3 breaths today in this moment, and that's your accomplishment for the day over the 25 days. And if I know that when somebody intends to be more intentional or alive and they follow through on that, I know that somebody after these 25 days is definitely going to feel more of that spark because I've
Yeah.
done it.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
you're taking responsibility for your aliveness and saying, I'm going to be a co-creator in my aliveness. I'm going all in on the decision to be a little bit fucking happier this month. And I'm going to
Yeah,
do it
for
with these
sure.
25 practices, like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
a
yeah.
no lose.
The no lose,
So,
absolutely. This actually reminded me a lot when I was in university back in Dubai, and I had my little car and I had my commute, to uni every morning, and I was going through a really, really tough time, really tough breakup, and one morning I was just like, I just have to do something different, and I just took a different route. I
yeah.
literally drove a different road. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm a fresh new human being. And then it went from that to the next day being like, I'm gonna wake up earlier and I'm gonna go to the beach before my first class. Why not? Or I'm gonna go pick up a croissant from this new cafe. And it literally changed my life at that point, because I was such in a low point in my life that I just needed something. And like you said, it created that spark, created that, like, it opened my eyes to the possibility of something new and the possibility of things not being shit all the time. So I love,
Totally.
yeah.
Thank you for
I,
saying that, because that is exactly what I'm talking about. And the reason why I put this together is, again, it doesn't matter whether you're in this dark place, although if you are in a dark place, this will help you crawl out of it,
mm,
like exactly what you're talking about. Or it could be that you're just wanting to deepen
mm-hmm,
your aliveness. You already feel alive. You're already killing it maybe out there, like I already kill it out there.
mm,
And I still do these practices to deepen in that aliveness, like you could be on this journey for years and it's just like, ooh, this is yummy. I want to
mm-hmm,
get even more of that yummy energy, right?
yeah.
Like when we were hosting the retreat, all the women in the group were like, it feels yummy in
I
here,
love that. Yeah.
And it's just because we're all sharing this presence and opening up to what's real and connecting to that bigger self, that bigger than me energy, the big Christelle, the big Jennifer, the big Kira, and that feeling of that aliveness and that it's yummy, and everybody's like, how are we going to take this yummy home with us? And I'm like, trust me, you're going to take some of this yummy home with you, whether you like it or not.
Right. Yeah.
But this challenge is like, okay, you can't come spend a week on retreat with me. Do this challenge with me. Get into the yummy in your own life. You have a
Yeah.
whole array of women who are going to do it with you. So
Mm-hmm.
that's that whole essence. But I appreciate you
I
sharing.
love.
Beautiful.
Oh no, thanks. I mean, I I love to share, and I feel very comfortable. It's specifically here with you. I just feel like it's a very comfortable. You've created a very safe space for all of us here, even online, and that just is a reflection of who you are and what you do and what you have to offer, which kind of leads me to my two final questions.
Mhm.
One being, if you have one piece of advice, a final message for our audience, what would it be?
Mm. Do you want it to be business related or personal, or how can I best support your community? You know them better than I do.
I mean, I would say most likely business related.
Okay. What piece of advice do I have? I mean, it's both personal and business. And
Mm,
this is just to trust your process.
right.
It's trust your process. Like to me, when I told the story of becoming a coach, like it took me years to finally arrive in that moment where I was ready to like fully step into it, in the same way that it took me over 10 years to get to the point of like, I'm ready to step into being a public figure. Like, yes, I've been one, but not in the way that I could be, you know?
Yeah.
And so I feel like trusting the process, that some days it's not all going to go boom, you know, and some days it will. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like, if it's not working for you, there's a chance that you haven't picked up a lesson that's really valuable for you. That it's, in other words, whatever process you're going through is supporting you. I'll open up and share another thing. There were many years as a coach where I wasn't making any money.
Mhm.
I mean, I was making some money, but like barely, you know,
Yeah.
like, and it was the most supportive years I ever had. First of all, it humbled me,
Mhm.
you know, and I don't think anybody from like 10 years ago would have labeled me like a humble person, you know? Just to give you a reference point, like anybody who knows me listening to this podcast, like, yeah, she's a bitch. No, I'm just kidding. But, you know, I would say I've had a pretty big ego. I come from a pretty big ego, which has worked for me in some ways because it's really enabled me to do some incredible things. But like, you know, I think it's also been supportive to be able to quiet a little bit of my ego and to bring it, you know, down.
Mm.
So what I'm saying is like, sometimes when you're not like successful, like that's supportive too. And you just got to look in that self-reflection mirror and say, well, how is this supportive to me? You know, also for those of you who teach or learn manifestation, you want to know what's really powerful from a manifestation point? It's having 25 cents in your bank account and manifesting a cup of coffee. It's having $20,000 in your bank account and manifesting $100,000, whatever, which I've done both. And
Mm.
I'm telling you, the mechanism for that is the same. And you learn more about manifestation not having than when you go to buy a cup of coffee and you have $100 in your bank account.
Yeah.
Because guess what? You know it's there. You're relying on what the known is rather than the unknown. So don't be afraid of going through a period of lack, because it's my most powerful times have been when I haven't had the money. I mean, I've had powerful times when I've had the money too, but you know, that's my best piece of advice from a business standpoint.
Thank you so much for that. That's really powerful. I think a lot of people can relate to that for sure. And my final question is, where can people find you? Where can people reach out to you?
Oh boy. Okay. So I have like 5 websites right now, but I'm just going to go with the 2 that I feel like are most relevant right now. And
Okay.
my name is Kira Sherman, KIRRA SHRMAN. And that is my website. It's been my website for years. I don't do much with it. It's not that fancy. You won't be impressed. But I do have some downloads on there if you're interested in getting meditation. And then I haven't not launched yet this comealive in25.com. But I'm about to kind of figure out the back end here in the next couple minutes, and maybe as a result of this podcast I have to do it right now.
Possibly, yeah.
So that by the time you publish it, it's available for you to go to the Come Alive in 25, where you can get those practices that we spoke about, if that speaks to you. But my kirasherman.com is where you'll find me if you're interested in any kind of mentorship through your business or through your life, or if you're a dude, you don't want to go to the Come Alive in 25. You want to do the mindset coaching with me, and that's on my personal website.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that. Well, listen, Kira, this was an awesome conversation. Thank you so much for sparing your time, for sharing all these stories, for sharing, more about your business and your plans for 2025. It all sounds really exciting. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And your energy has contributed a lot to this as well. It's been really fun and sweet.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet.
Mhm.
Thank you, Kira. Take care.
I really hope you enjoyed this podcast. I want you to go away and execute everything there is that you've learned. Now, one thing I will say is if you're in a position where you're ready to actually take things to another level, you want structured, clear guidance, you want a team that can actually help accelerate you, book in a chat with our advisors. Why? We can blow up your personal brand to attract clients begging to work with you. All you got to do is book in a chat with our advisors and we can help make it happen. Sound fair enough?